Okay, number 7. Each of the marbles in a jar is either red or white or blue. If one marble is to be selected at random from the jar, what is the probability that the marble will be blue? Okay, so we always want to try to write everything down we can, especially the important stuff. So over here I wrote R, comma, W, comma, B, and then all underneath. That's my little shorthand to indicate that everything consists of either red, white, or blue. And then over here I summarized the question, blue over total equals question mark, which is a nice sort of shorthand way of indicating the question, which is the probability of picking a blue. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our conditions here. Condition number 1, there are a total of 24 marbles in the jar, 8 of which are red. Okay, so let's extrapolate from that. If there's 8 red out of 24 total, and they're either red, white, or blue, then there must be 16 white or blue marbles out of the 24 total. Which is nice, but it still doesn't answer our question because we have 2 variables left. We know that the white and the blue add up to 16, but we don't know what those numbers are individually. There's obviously more than one combination of numbers that could add up to 16. And so number 1 is not sufficient, which means A is not correct. And if A is not correct, then D is automatically not correct, as you should know by now. So we cross A and D off together. All right, let's move on to number 2. We'll wipe our memory clean of number 1 and move on to number 2. Remember not to bring anything from number 1 into number 2 yet, at least. That's a bad habit that I see with a lot of my students. So we wipe the slate clean, and now we consider number 2. Condition number 2, the probability that the marble selected will be white is 1/2. Okay, so that means white over total equals 1/2. We don't know the total this time, they don't tell us, but if white marbles are half the total, then clearly blue and red marbles are the other half of the total. But once again, we find ourselves in a similar situation as we did in number 1. We know that blues and reds added up together make up half the marbles, but we don't know in what combination. And since there's still 2 variables remaining, then B is not going to work either, because number 2 is not sufficient by itself, so we cross off B. And then, of course, our final step is to decide between C and E. C means they work. C means that number 1 and number 2 in combination are sufficient to answer the question, and E means that they are not sufficient in combination or individually to answer the question. So at this point, we're just deciding between C and E, so let's test it. We know that the probability of getting a white is 1/2. If we set the total equal to 24, we'll then see that white equals 12. We can take from number 1 here that 8 of them are red. So we can put that down here. And then, of course, once we know how many whites there are, once we know how many reds there are, the only thing that's left is the number of blue marbles. We can just subtract the 12 and the 8 from 24 to solve that B equals 4. And then, of course, once we know B equals 4, we can figure out the probability of picking a blue marble, which would be 4 out of 24, or 1/6, which makes the answer C.